Hello, everyone, and welcome to Old World Tech Fridays. I am
Good evening.
Frodo Jedi, and I'm joined by my co-host Ryan of Everything's Broken Raj, and
Evening.
the other direction, Trina of
Hi.
Trina's Technobabble. How are you guys this evening?
Good.
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 This is going to be a bit of a somber one, but yeah.
So, for everybody just joining us as we just started, this is going to be a special episode of Old World Tech Fridays. So we really appreciate you joining us. We're going to cover some more serious topics than what we've done in the past. As with that, the episode format's going to be a little different than what you're used to. So just stick with us and feel free to ask any questions and stuff as things go in the comments. We're going to be watching that and checking those out as we go. If you want to, real quick, just to keep things at least somewhat sort of like what we normally do, Trini, you want to see who's joining us this evening?
Sure, we have, you guys are going to laugh at this. We have the Macintosh person, because I can't say that word. We have Kate joining us. We have Will, JC, Retrotech Chris, Sloopy Malibu, MMU Man, Joe of Joe's Computer Museum, Martin Matthew, Todd Gill. Sorry if I'm missing anybody. Jamie's Hack Shack, Garth Beagle, This Does Not Compute, Gut Bomb, Bent MG, Retrotech or Die, Eric's Edge, Thomas Armstrong, and I think that covers it. Jeremy's Vintage Hillbilly Shack was here at like 1 o'clock.
We got a lot of people who just joined there at the end as well.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, let me go down to the bottom then. We have Code, Monsieur, One Bit Fever Dreams, Mac 84 is back, J Wire, KR. I don't know how to say the name. Sorry, Ian Scott.
Trev Rudin?
Yeah, sure, go with that. And Retrotechy.
Awesome.
So we have quite a few people here hanging out with us this evening. So let's just kick things off. We have a special guest this evening. We actually have a few special guests lined up, but our first special guest this evening will be Ron of Ron's Computer Videos. How are you, Ron?
Evening, Ron.
Hey, I'm doing just fine. Do you guys hear me okay?
Yep, coming
Perfect.
through loud and clear.
All right, super duper. So thank you very much for having me here this evening. I really do appreciate it. I think that this is an important topic, and I'm glad that everybody has been so supportive. And so I'm very just pleased to be here.
I'd also like to point out Dave from Dave's Vintage Apple, right?
Tech.
Mm-hmm.
Apple Tech.
Yep.
Also had hoped to join this evening, but given the time zone difference, right now it's like 4:04 his time, so he's still working. So he sends his best wishes, and again, any comments or anything pertaining to Dave's video as well can be asked here and relayed on. So Ron, I'll let you tell us a little bit about what's been going on and what prompted your video.
It's been a busy week. It
has.
Actually, I'll tell you what really kind of prompted all this is I just had enough of everything that's been going on. And I just figured that eventually you got to rip the Band-Aid off. You got to make things public. And so I posted a video earlier this week that was a little bit more of a like, if you know kind of video. And people responded really, really well to it. And then people started reaching out to me and saying like, hey, I've had similar experiences with this guy, but I thought I was the only one. And so it was just, it was pretty heartbreaking, like hearing some of the stories of people like losing one-of-a-kind machines, or this was my childhood computer, or a rare prototype and things like that. And I was just like, you know what, I've just had enough. We're gonna have to just have some community awareness and get the ball rolling on exposing this person.
Absolutely. So I know you covered a lot on your video, And again, I mentioned, David hoped he could be here, but time zone difference. He couldn't. So Dave also had shared quite a bit on his video as well of his personal experience of what happened. But
Right.
I know you had mentioned in your video there were quite a few people that had reached out to you.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that have reached out, and then even more people in the comments, people that just through other people sharing it, that were like, wait a minute, that's right, I know this guy, and I know that he did these things, and here's my version of the story. So there are some commonalities with how he went about perpetrating these crimes. And so a lot of stories kind of sound the same, but it is still no less upsetting to hear it from just another person on the list of people that have been affected by this. So
Yeah. No, I had seen a lot of postings and the same thing. I mean, once you start doing just basic Google search, there's a lot of things that have showed up and come out of the woodwork that you wouldn't have known otherwise. So this has really put a spotlight on things and
it sure
really
it sure has
really brought a lot to the surface that people
Yeah.
may not have known. So
For sure.
Ryan and Trina, anything you'd like to ask before we?
No, I
started?
think basically this will be one of the first nights that myself and Trina really have nothing to say. So we're actually going to exit stage left or right, and leave it to Ron and Frodo to tell their stories, and and we'll be in the green room, egging you on and checking those comments and stuff. So
Great.
yeah, we'll go ahead and remove ourselves, and
Thank
talk
you, guys.
to you soon, guys.
Great.
Yep.
See ya.
Great. All right. Frank.
Hi.
All right. Actually, I prepared kind of a little break, sort of a monologue or kind of a breakdown of the situation so far. Did you want me to maybe read that now?
Yeah, that's entirely up to you.
Should not take very long, but
I'm going to let you steer things from here.
Okay, great. Let me go ahead and do that, and then we'll bring out our next guest. So,
Yep.
But I just want to start tonight's show with a little background about who I am and what my connection is with tonight's conversation. In late 2020 or early 2021, I received an unsolicited phone call from Sean, better known as Geek with Social Skills, while at work, on a work phone number. He was very charming, and he shared stories with me about who he was and what his place was in the retro hobby. He painted a picture of himself as someone connected to luminaries like Steve Wozniak and Kevin Mitnick, and even had a few wild claims that placed him at pivotal events in computing history that, in retrospect, there was no way someone his age could have been involved with. He also liked to name drop YouTube retro computing celebrities and talk about how he was one of their closest friends. So I let a lot of that stuff slide just because he seemed like an affable but harmless sort of person, very full of himself, but harmless and maybe just a little bit insecure. After a few of these getting to know you type conversations, he shifted his effort into trying to figure out what retro computing equipment I had and what items I might be interested in adding to my collection. I got connections to the arcade, retro telecom, console, Commodore communities. So pretty much anything you're looking for, I've got it. And I had a few things that he wanted, and I had a few things that he wanted. Or I'm sorry, he had a few things I wanted, and I had a few things he wanted. And so, terms were kind of set out about how these trades were going to take place. Okay. And I ended up sending him a Commodore Plus 4, and I cannot remember. I've slept a few times since then. I do not remember if I sent him a floppy drive or not. But I did for sure send him a Tandy 1000 with the keyboard and a monitor and a few other little smaller items that he was interested in. But ultimately, I only received a small portion of what was agreed upon. And that claim, admittedly, is going to be tough to verify because Sean always required that conversations where he was like committing himself to doing something, those had to be telephone calls. It could not be written communication. Likely because he knows that recorded conversations are often not admissible as evidence in criminal proceedings due to the varying state laws about consent to be recorded.
Sure.
After a successful trade on his end, the frequency of calls only increased from there, with him sometimes calling 3 or 4 times a week at the peak. He'd often call my work phone during business hours, and I just started to let those go straight to voicemail. Weeks went by, and the other agreed upon items still had not arrived. Weeks slipped into months, months slipped into years. After a while, Sean started approaching me about direct cash donations, soliciting direct cash donations to help him pay for a storage unit that he'd rented to hold the contents of a hoarder's house that he'd recently helped clean out. He shared photos, what showed to be, or what looked to be, an RV-sized storage unit filled with retro computing gear from many different manufacturers. The plea was often that he just couldn't keep paying for the storage unit, and he needed money so that he'd have more time to find homes for all the equipment. I suggested to just put out the call to the local retro computing community to just come and take the items, but that was met with contempt because many of these items were valuable. Sean has always been very interested to know who else I knew in the Macintosh retro computing community, since he didn't have very many contacts there. What introductions could I make? He often pressed me for contact information beyond what is just available online, and I repeatedly told him that official channels were always the best channels, and that if they wanted to offer more to him, they would. It was around that time that Sean started ingratiating himself with members of the broader Macintosh and Apple II communities. As time goes on, the calls became fewer and fewer, and the Twitter DMs were less frequent. If there was any communications, it was generally critical of me to the or the content that I produce. He didn't like my YouTube shorts, or I was producing the wrong type of content, or I needed to split my channel and the audience for reasons that he really couldn't properly communicate. And if I would only do those things, he could guarantee me thousands of views on all my new content. Because he'd get his audience to watch it. It was around that time that I noticed that any new content posted on his channel would get a huge spike in viewership in like a suspiciously short amount of time after being posted. Sometimes what appeared to be a few thousand views in just like a few minutes. And this all seemed very, very suspect to me, so I just ignored his advice. Finally, all communication stopped, other than the random reminder that I'm doing a bad job and I should absolutely feel bad about it. Not open hostility, but not communication that I would consider from a friend. So about a month ago, I was approached by some members of the Macintosh retro computing community to ask what I knew about Sean. I relayed my experiences to the best of my recollection, and that was immediately met with confused responses. My experiences with Sean sounded very much like their experiences. Random unsolicited phone calls on numbers that would require some social engineering skills to secure. Trades that often largely favored Sean that were never complete, or if they were completed, or if the transaction was finished, like the items would never magically arrive. Direct sales of items, they were always shipping tomorrow due to some delay. Requests for cash to pay for the costs associated with the storage unit. But the biggest blow was that stories that I shared with Sean about my experiences in this hobby were being retold as if they were Sean's stories. I didn't know what to say. How could I have been so blind to what this guy was up to? As time went on, I met with more people outside of my community, and they had stories that were very much like the one that I had and my friends had. So anytime you'd ask him to put in contact, or, so anytime you'd ask him in the context of him being a grifter, you'd ask online, there would always be somebody ready to jump to his defense. But when you'd ask if they'd ever traded with him, purchased items from him, or had been approached for money, these supporters either hadn't done those things or had only done small items or only conducted like business with him face to face. And that's the other thing. I never recall seeing Sean's face in any of the times we interacted online. He'd always have his camera off, claiming he wanted to protect his privacy. And I can understand privacy concerns, but I thought if we're friends, why would knowing what you look like be such an invasion of your privacy? It was after that, when I posted the video, that the floodgates opened on Sean's criminal past. It was obvious why he needed to protect his identity from people. They'd read what he'd done and make the connection that, while he's paid for some of these past crimes, the scams never stopped. And he's never been held accountable in a meaningful way for continuing to take advantage of people in the various retro computing communities for decades. Reading online, there are literally dozens of posts, articles, personal stories. There's a book on Amazon outlining his alleged involvement with one of the most high-profile scandals in the retro console community. So how is this all possible? Why would all these people be attacking him? And this seemingly ever-present army of people that were willing to defend him against all these allegations. Why? How is this happening? So was the answer that there was some sort of coordinated effort to damage the reputation of an innocent man? Or was it more likely that this person was not who they represented themselves to be? I couldn't keep this to myself. The issue was obviously bigger than just me, and people needed to be alerted to what this grifter was doing to try to destroy retro communities that he's targeted with his decades-long criminal enterprise. So I made a video about my experiences, posted it to my YouTube channel. And again, the floodgates absolutely opened with dozens of people sharing their experiences being taken advantage of by Geek with Social Skills or just weird interactions they've had with him. Then others started making their own posts on their own social media platforms and, just in support of exposing this con man for making all of just betraying everybody's trust. Obviously, this got back to Sean, and I understand that he's now running a campaign to try to undermine my credibility with his ever-shrinking community of people that he considers to be supporters. I even hear that he's citing a disagreement over naming a community event, which he had promised had big name support. Well, when I contacted those big names, they had no knowledge of the event or Sean's involvement with it. This was just another lie from a person who thought, or I thought was my friend, and worked hard to make me feel welcome and validated so that he could exploit me. Sean, if you are watching this, just know this. I don't require anybody to take my word for anything I'm saying. I encourage them to read up on you and to verify the claims I'm making. They should also read the similar claims that dozens of other people are making about you. I understand that this is the last thing you want, man, because it means you can't hide any longer. Thankfully, your efforts to assassinate my character have largely fallen on deaf ears because the community recognizes that there is no accusation that you can make that isn't in fact a confession. So there are 3 groups of people that are watching this video. People that Sean has scammed, people that Sean hasn't scammed yet, and puppet accounts and sycophants that are working hard to convince good people in our community that group 1 are a bunch of liars. That's it.
So listening to a lot of your story and a lot of the interactions that you had are super very reminiscent of a lot of the same experiences that I had over the last year.
Yep.
I first met Sean through
We'll get to this
one
here
of
in a
the
minute.
YouTube
We'll get to
lives.
this here in a minute.
Yeah.
We'll get to this here in a minute. Do you want to bring our guest out?
Actually, yes. Let's see. So we have a special guest. In addition to Ron being our special guest, we have somebody else that has something that they would like to share about an experience or multiple experiences that they've had with Sean as well. So let's see. Here we go. So this is our
Steve, do you want to
special
introduce
guest,
yourself?
Steve.
Sure. My name's Steven. I have also had past dealings with Sean. Specifically, I follow the Commodore Forever group, came across Ron's video, watched that, listened to what he was talking about, and just as the video went on, it was just listening to my interactions with Sean coming from someone else.
Absolutely.
I reached out to Ron and mentioned my experience with Sean and spoke with him about it. And as it turns out, there is actually some overlap between my experience and Frodo's experience there.
Absolutely. All right. Well, I agreed to come on to mediate a little bit of a conversation about both of your experiences, because both of you guys have a very unique story to tell that has been attempted to be shared in some other spaces, but has been suppressed by people that, like I said, sycophants and or puppet accounts for Sean. And I think that it is super important that we get all that out. But for this conversation, we do need to lay out a little bit of ground rules, and this goes for chat as well, because Ryan and Trina are doing a good job. They're keeping an eye on chat to make sure that things stay civil. This should be a civil conversation more than anything else. But there are a few rules of what we're going to do. We are not going to name drop any big names. People know who people are, and that's okay. But we are not here. We are focusing on Sean, Geek with Social Skills. He'll be the focus of tonight's conversation. We are not going to share locales of where any of these things happened, unless you might share what your locales are as the interviewees. But we're not going to talk about where Sean lives. We're not going to talk about any of that. We are not going to use full legal names. We're not doxing anybody here. People that want to do their own research will do their own research. We're not going to disclose any internet detective work, and we ask that people in chat not try to engage in any internet detective work while we're doing this. We're just having a conversation. And the biggest thing that we're not going to do is we are not going to engage in speculation or hearsay. Both of the guests are going to stick to the facts of their specific experiences with Sean. So that's basically it. Frank, since you are here all the time, let's start with our friend Steve. Steve, how did you meet Sean?
It would help if I unmuted myself. First time I met him, I believe, was back in 2019. And he is attempting to call me, as a quick note. I saw a posting on Craigslist for some Amiga software and was interested in what he was selling and asked to meet with him. So I met with him face to face and purchased some items from him.
Okay. Frank, how did you meet Sean?
It help if I unmute myself. Sorry, I keep coughing, so I'm muting myself so I don't keep coughing over everybody talking. But anyway, so I met Sean online. I've never met him in person. We live complete opposite ends of the world. So I met Sean after I want to say it might have been on Dave's stream.
Mhm.
He had showed up and we had met via that way during a repair stream, and I had mentioned that I needed some website work done for a pest control company that I own, and he does that kind of stuff, or said he does that kind of stuff. So he reached out to me after one of the streams offering to work on that.
Mhm.
So we talked a little bit on the phone because, again, the same thing. He liked to have most conversations via the phone. So we called and talked for quite a while. And then he had showed me, some of, his website and stuff like that, listing that he does web development and, this other stuff. So we agreed that I was going to pay him $2,000 to do, redo the website, from scratch, because what I had was basically a template and I kind of filled in some things, just some generic stuff so that I had something online.
Mhm.
So I paid him $1,000, down for the first half. And then he was supposed to get the other $1,000, at closing, essentially like when he had a finished product. He had messaged me. This was like March of last year, the end of March. And he had messaged me a short while after that, a few weeks, and said, hey, I'm getting really close. During this time, he did ask for, like, oh, what's the address you want to list on there? What are some specific things you want to list on there? I said, pretty much basically copy what I've got on the other thing. I just want to make it look a little nicer and cleaner and, link to a customer portal, for payments and things like that. So it wasn't anything hard or difficult. It was very basic. Like there's only a couple pages and stuff of what I've got. So he messaged me and said, hey, I'm pretty much close to done. I just need to, wrap up a couple things. Can you send me the other half? No problem. I did. And then during that time, he had sold me some items. The first items, I believe, were
I
some
know
like
this is
macro
still how
friendly
did you
stuff.
meet? This is
Oh,
still
I'm
how did
so
you meet?
sorry. So then that's pretty much it. Like he messaged me after one of the live streams about doing some website work.
Okay, that's but did you Steve, when you met Sean, were you immediately sort of like that you were being like overly friendly with you, or calling you at odd times, or trying to very much like pressing himself onto you?
The first meeting, I would say, very friendly. Wanted to talk for quite a while. I think when I met with him face to face, we were talking for close to 45 minutes or so before we parted ways.
Mhm.
About it's been quite a while, so I don't remember specifics of the conversation, but I do remember towards the end he started asking like what type of things I collect, what was in my collection. After that, I did actually hear from him on a fairly regular basis, either by text message or a phone call. I did speak with him quite a bit, and he was early on very friendly, wanted to share a lot about himself, share a lot of his stories with me, and talk to me on a pretty regular basis. So definitely, as far as the conversation went, a lot more open than I was used to with many people after meeting them for the first time.
Sure. Okay. Frank, as someone who kind of runs their own business and is like a very busy kind of person, did you also receive like just random phone calls during the day, just or
Yeah.
intrusive
So
things into your time?
it was almost. I mean, he tried to communicate mostly through phone calls. Like,
Mhm.
hey, do you have a quick minute for a phone call? Or hey, like, or he'd try to call and then message me and say, hey, do you have a quick minute for a phone call? So yeah, almost exclusively via phone calls for quite some time. And when we got on the phone, it was 45 minutes, an hour or so, gone by, and um, didn't really talk about a whole lot. I guess just kind of again same
Getting
thing,
to know
Steve.
you,
Yeah, same
pumping you for
thing.
information.
Sure, but
Yeah.
same as Steve's experience. Like a lot of information and stories about him being involved in Commodore stuff and things like
Mhm.
that.
Okay.
Name dropping people, was a huge one.
Mhm. Steve, did he ever name drop celebrities or anything to try to sort of make like leverage maybe some unearned social capital with you?
I do remember that was a pretty common topic in conversations, his experiences with people like Steve Wozniak or Bill Hurd.
Mhm.
It was a pretty regular thing in a lot of conversations, actually.
Okay. So, Steve, what did you end up purchasing from Sean?
I don't remember the specific software. I'd have to go pull it out, and but I do just remember it was a few games for I believe Amiga 500, a couple Commodore 64 games with their manual, and a in-box 256K memory card for an Amiga 1000.
Okay. Um, Frank, what did you end up purchasing from him?
So I I bought all kinds of stuff.
Mhm.
So hang on,
I
I
know,
have a
it's a
spreadsheet. There's
laundry
so
list
much
of
stuff.
stuff.
Yeah.
Why don't you go through like maybe some of the big ticket items?
Some of the big ticket items were even just recently was one of them was like a Amiga 4000 tower.
Mhm.
One of them was a Commodore PET.
Mhm. Now,
Um,
when you say recently, how recently is recently? Because something
so
Sean likes to bring up repeatedly is that this criminality and this grifting is in the past. People are just bringing up stuff from the
no, so
past. So
so the
you're telling
Commodore
me that this is
4000
maybe
was in
something
December,
December.
like
Okay.
December 22nd is when he reached
December
out
of
about the
2023.
Yes, when he reached out about the Amiga 4000 tower. So yeah, I checked my text messages because he sent me pictures and said, "Hey, my neighbor has this Amiga 4000 tower. He found, it had in his basement. He wants to sell it. Asked me if I knew anybody interested." Um, Before that, the Commodore PET was in November.
Mhm.
So like, I bought up a bunch of Amiga stuff.
Mhm.
I bought a bunch of Mac stuff, Apple stuff. Basically similar to you were talking about with the storage unit. That was one of the big things. Hey, I've got this massive haul, which he referred to a YouTube video, which is on his channel. He cleared out this giant haul of stuff and brought it back to this storage unit, filled up the
Mhm.
storage unit. Hey, I have all this stuff, like I don't want to keep paying for the storage unit, so I'm trying to get rid of some of this stuff. Make me an offer, I'll give you a good deal on stuff. So yeah, it was
Mhm.
Mac stuff, Apple stuff, Amiga stuff, a bunch of things, like so much stuff that in June of last year, he had said he had a friend that was moving to, within a couple hours from me,
Mhm.
has a U-Haul pod, has some extra room. I'm going to put a whole pallet of stuff on that. That my friend agreed to take with them, and then that way you could just pick it up from him locally. That'll save you money on shipping. I was like, awesome. That was
Mhm.
June of last year.
Sure.
And then in November, the week before Thanksgiving, he has said, "Hey, I have a whole pallet full of this other stuff. I'm gonna pack it up. My brother works for this freight company. I'm gonna get a great deal on shipping it through him, and then because he works there, I'll have some time to pay it off, so it's less expensive.
Mhm.
That's on the way." And that was in just the week before Thanksgiving.
Sure.
And here we are, March 1st, and
Mhm.
I've gotten none
Still
of that.
waiting.
Yep,
Yeah.
nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Steve, if I could ask, if you're able to discuss it, I know that you have some extenuating circumstances with your connection with Sean, and the purchases you've made and things like that. Are you able to tell us a dollar amount? If you're not, I'm certainly I don't want to. If you're not comfortable sharing that information, it's okay.
If you're referring to the 4000 tower, I'll refrain from answering on that. But if you're referring to previous purchases, I want to say the exchange maybe just a few hundred, about 300 or so, and that was just for past things like the software, paying for repair on a few items, that kind of thing.
But these were things that he did make good on.
Yes, those were things he did make good on early on.
Okay, because that's another part of this story too, is that there are smaller setup sort of transactions to build trust. So that way that it's now I'm more comfortable. We've had a few things go back and forth. Would you agree with the assessment that these smaller interactions were probably setting you up for um, this bigger situation that did not end, that ended poorly?
At the time, I would have just thought it was like any other transaction. In hindsight, though, I do believe that they were there to build trust to get me to the point that we ended up at.
Okay. Sean, or I'm sorry, Frank, would you be willing, or are you able to share the dollar amount of the purchases that you've made that you have not received merchandise for?
Yeah, just over $6,300 total.
Okay.
That
So
excludes legal fees.
right. So $6,300 in actual hardware, and
Yep.
that does not include the services that you hired
That
him.
includes the $2,000 for the website.
Okay.
So like actual hardware was another like $4,300.
Okay.
So it's So it's the
Okay.
2,000 was the website, which again still never got that either. So
Right. So we're easily like over $5,000. Just
oh yeah, yep,
poof.
just
Okay.
me. Yeah.
Right. Just you alone.
Yep.
So you kind of talked about it a little bit, but I wanted to ask, when did you Steve, when did you kind of realize that things had gone wrong? That Sean was not going to make the Geek with Social Skills was not going to make good on the transaction that you guys had agreed upon?
I had started to get some hints of it a few months after he had taken possession of the Amiga Tower. Given the nature of what needed to be fixed, it was replacing a capacitor or more in the system. The excuse that he had said to me was he was waiting on items from DigiKey, which, from my own personal experience with DigiKey, sometimes those orders just take a long time. One thing I like to point out is I have an order dating back to 2020, I believe, that I'm still waiting for fulfillment on.
Mhm.
So I figured, yeah, it's a reasonable amount of time. The point where I started to feel like something was up was just there would be points where, oh, I'm done or I'm almost done, and then I would get, wait, I found something else after the fact.
Mhm.
There was a point in our communication, though, where it had just become very clear that I was just not getting this item back from him. And that was the point where it became incredibly difficult to even get a hold of him, either by text messages or calling. And there'd be just periods of time where I wouldn't hear from him for more than a month.
Mhm.
And it took me calling and texting him repeatedly.
So it was your experiences as well, because that is a common thing that a lot of people have reported on my video, just in the comments, that have said, "Hey, we had several good transactions, then we had a big transaction, but every time there would be a delay, that it would be like, it ships tomorrow, but then after tomorrow passed." That he would come to you with another cheap item or like a good deal, because I feel so bad about that I haven't shipped this yet. So why don't I just throw one more thing on there? Did he approach you with things like that too?
Yes, he would often make offers of like, oh, I feel bad that it's taken me this long to get the Amiga back to you. I have some software or some hardware you could have. And those things just never materialized because he just did not want to meet face to face, or
Right.
was just unwilling to.
Sure. Now, Frank, you had said that that he did that to you as well, that it was always like just one more item and one more
Yes.
item and one more item.
Yeah.
And that seems to have kind of snowballed to the point where you said that it was going to require a pod. For
Yeah.
people that maybe aren't familiar with what that is, what's a pod?
So essentially, a pod is like it's a mobile storage unit almost. I mean, essentially, when you're moving or you're getting construction or renovations done to your house, you can rent a pod from U-Haul, which is like a Connex box.
Mhm.
You load all your stuff into it, and they'll leave it on your property if it's temporary, or if you're moving. Like in this case, that person supposedly was moving. U-Haul comes and picks it up once it's loaded, and then they truck it to your new place. They put it right in your driveway or your yard, and you can unload it at your leisure, and they'll come and pick it up.
Okay. All right. That's kind of I've seen commercials and things for that, but I just
Yep.
didn't know how common that was in different areas of the US. So I think it'd be really difficult to move to a major city and they just drop a pod on your sidewalk for a week or
Yeah.
something. So so you're very fortunate that that some people can leverage those things. But since you did have a situation where it was just like one more thing and one more thing and one more
Mhm.
thing, I guarantee that there are people that have it in their head that they're thinking to themselves, well, due to the length of time that this grift, this scam was perpetrated, why did you keep sending him money when he wasn't sending you anything? Now, please understand, this is not me blaming the victim. This is me saying something that might come up in a legal proceeding. Like, why would you
Well,
continue to send him money if you weren't getting anything?
well, there were several factors that went into this. So one, I thought he was my friend.
Mhm.
Like he was super friendly the entire time.
Right.
I had no reason to suspect otherwise. And literally, I'm not exaggerating. I mean, it was probably 2 or 3 times a month there was some emergency or family sickness or
Mhm.
illness, or
Yeah.
one time he said his
Well,
wife was
on
deathly
his
ill.
part, he's saying like emotional manipulation to say like,
Yes, correct.
okay,
Yeah. So like at one point I know he had talked about this, I even on a live stream, like, oh, the transmission went out in my car. I don't have the money to pay for it. Like I don't know if I could pull the money out of my 401k, like I need to come up with money for this. Another one was he lost his job last year, he said, so he was between jobs. So I bought a bunch of stuff then to try and help out. And then another one, his wife was deathly ill in the hospital with something. I can't remember what it was at the, right now. That was another one. One of the more recent ones is my furnace just died and I'm going to have to spend, $18 or $2,000 or something it was to do repairs. So it was always something, unfortunate going on, and things happen. Like I get that. And even in the community with other members, things happen, and we all step in and we all try to help and we all do what we can to help that person get through it.
absolutely.
So I didn't think anything of it. I mean, I stayed pretty busy. And honestly, the amounts were, to me, the amounts were small. Like it was a couple $100 here, $300-$400 there throughout the year. Like it wasn't all at one time. Like the
Right.
biggest expense all at once was the website,
Sure.
early on. But other than that, it was a few $100 here, a few $100 there,
Right.
the rest of the year. So
I could absolutely see that, because it's easy for those things, like I will go out on eBay and I'll like, oh, it's just a $20 video card, oh, like a $10 sound card, and when you add it all up, it's $400 worth of stuff. So yeah, it's very, very easy to let those purchases kind of snowball when you're not really looking at the numbers. So but I just wanted to make sure, because I guarantee that there are people out there that are going to be like, well, caveat emptor, it's like, well, not exactly, because this was a good faith and someone that was emotionally manipulating you to do things, that you thought you were helping them out. Steve, were you ever approached with those emotional pleas where it's like, I'm $500 short on the rent this month, or car repair or something, I got these items, do you want to buy these things? Was that ever used to try to entice you, even when you weren't interested in something, to purchase something?
I can say they weren't used as means to get more money from me, but they were used as devices to try to placate concerns on, hey, why don't I have my items back yet? And I would get answers like that of medical emergency, or something happened, or hey, my tire had a flat and I had to get my vehicle towed. So that it wasn't to get money out of me, but it was to placate me, to keep me from calling him again for a bit.
Right. I understand. Frank, you about the pod, you had said it's like UPS or somebody comes and picks it up. So wouldn't that just be, was this pod ever, did you ever see a picture of this pod? Did they?
I feel like he did. I feel like at one point in time he had sent a picture of stuff loaded into a pod, but I didn't see the computer stuff.
Okay.
Like I can see the mattress and stuff that he said he put like in front of it,
right?
To protect it. But I don't know that the photo ever actually showed
any of the things that you had purchased.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. Exactly.
So you said UPS comes and picks this thing up, or I'm
No,
sorry,
this was
U-Haul.
U-Haul.
U-Haul comes and picks this thing up or something.
Yep.
So if U-Haul comes and picks this thing up, shouldn't you be able to track this and figure out where it's actually at? Was tracking information ever shared with you, or was the name of the shipper shared with you, or?
No. So this was a friend of his essentially moving from where Sean lived to the state where I live. So this was something that guy did personally, and they were doing Sean a favor because they had extra room as far as taking this stuff with them to get it closer to me. Okay. So I never even thought to say, hey, can I have your friend's name or information? Like I just assumed the guy, he would contact me once he got moved in and all that, to where I can come and get it. Okay. But again, I'd asked about it several times and always got excuses.
Did he share the name of this friend with you at least?
No. Nope. And when I had asked about it, so in January, when things come to a head, which we'll get to at some point here, I sent a list of, like, I need to know where this is, like the pallet that you shipped in June to the friend. I need to know, his contact information and address so that I can get a hold of him to go get that stuff. I need to know, the tracking number for the one that's in progress that your brother's company sent.
Wait,
he wouldn't give
brother's
that to
company. Brother's company.
Yeah, the company he worked for. So he said his brother worked for a shipping company.
Okay,
And that
so
he was getting a
UPS,
good
or
deal.
I'm sorry, I keep saying
No,
UPS. U-Haul did not pick up this pod.
not
the
the
pod
second one.
was rented from you. Are there 2 pods?
Yeah, so one was sent via pod,
Okay,
with that friend moving to the
right.
state that I'm at.
And
The
then there's
second
a
one was
second
sent
one.
via freight, like with a
Okay,
freight shipping company, like a
right.
pallet. Yeah.
Okay.
And
And
when
you were
I
never
asked,
given tracking information. You were
nope,
never given the names of the shippers
nope,
on either one of these.
and no. And I asked about the friend, and how I can get a hold of him. And then he says, "Well, I'll set up a call." Like, he wouldn't give me his information. I'll set up a call so that you two can talk. To get that.
Sure.
And then on the one that was shipped in November, supposedly, I had asked. I said, I need the tracking information, the contact information for the company, so that I can call them to find out where it's at, because it doesn't take November, December, January to get
Right.
cross country. Like, it just doesn't.
Right.
So he was like, well, that's going to put my brother in an awkward situation, and I'll have to call him to make sure it's okay that if I share that. I was like, I'm not asking for your brother's name. I'm asking for the company and the tracking information.
Right.
Wouldn't give it to me. He's got to check with his brother.
Right.
Is what I was told.
Well, and that's another big part of this with Sean. Geek with Social Skills is gatekeeping other things, especially information that you should just have access to. Steve, did you have situations where maybe you were trying to communicate with other people in the community or trying to get information about things and specifically had things withheld from you just because those things weren't real, or it was just Sean trying to put himself into a place of importance that he really shouldn't have occupied?
I personally did not have anything like that. Most of my interactions with Sean were all in the context of a direct trade or the situation around the Amiga 4000 tower. Interactions beyond that were sometimes he'd just call to talk about random things, just being friendly. But I didn't have a situation where anything like that was being gatekept. I think that might just be a function of the fact that I had only met him face to face prior to that. So there would be no need to involve anything like that.
Okay. I was going to say it's a little bit different maybe for you just because you are able to have face-to-face interactions with him. Most everybody else that I've spoken with, they just know him by either his legal name or as Sean or Geek with Social Skills or any of his like website stuff, because there's a couple of other little nicknames he likes to use as part of his branding. So I'm certain. So it makes it a little more difficult to reach out when somebody will only talk to you on the phone, or someone will like only communicate with you via a Telegram. Is that the app where you can delete the conversation for the other person? that that sure seems suspect to me. But so I heard both of you mention an Amiga 4000 tower. So how did you guys meet?
Who meet? Steve and I?
How did you two meet?
Oh, so Steve had watched your video. He'd come across your video online, and
I mean, I know how you met, but this
Yeah.
is for the audience.
Yeah. And then had reached out to you to get in contact with me to find out information on the 4000 tower that I had bought from Sean. So given the fact that like I wasn't aware of Steve or anything else, prior to this. And so like after Steve and I connected, he had said, hey, would you mind sending me, like information on the 4,000 tower that you had bought from Sean? Like, do you have it, or can you send me pictures of it? And so I told him, I said, no, I never actually got it. Like, he sent me pictures of it when he asked me if I wanted to buy it from his neighbor,
Right.
Jim,
Sure.
is who he said
Yep.
was selling it.
Hold on one second. Hold on one second. Steve, you reached out to me via email because we'll talk
Yes.
about the situation here in just a second, Frank. But this is just how did you guys meet? So I had posted my video. You very kindly, you sent me a message. You were talking about some things, and I sort of had a mental recognition of something that Frank had also talked about, which is what he was kind of describing. Do you want to take a second and maybe just talk about what kind of prompted you to reach out to me?
Sure. When I saw that video and I just realized how similar your story sounded to my own interactions with him, I wanted to reach out because part of it was just a desire to just kind of let someone else know that, hey, I have dealt with this myself. The other thing was, up until that video, like I was aware of rumblings of things, but I thought it was just me. I thought that I had been taken advantage of here, and it was no one else. And then I saw your video, and I realized there's other people, and it's actively happening, and that's why I reached out.
Yeah, well, that's good because again, I'm familiar with the time frame on your bad deal with Sean, Geek with Social Skills, but I know that he very often wants to sell the idea that this is all in the past. This is like 20 plus years ago, and I paid for my indiscretions, and that's all in the past. But you two are telling me that this happened in the last year or two?
Yes.
Okay. So you reached out to me and I said, Frank, or actually what I said was, I believe that I have a friend who has your machine, because I saw some pictures that Frank had posted. And so I was like, this is just too weird of a coincidence for this to not be the exact same machine. So with your permission, I reached out to Frank and just said, hey, I'm going to connect you guys so that way that we can have another or we can have a bigger conversation. You guys can connect and compare notes and all of that. So Frank, you were saying that that basically that he had approached you and he had said that this was something that was in a neighbor's basement, and the neighbor didn't want to go the eBay route or something.
Yep.
So yeah.
So I'm gonna pull it right up here on text messages that he sent me, because he had just randomly messaged me that day about the Amiga 4000, because I know he had heard me talk about it before, and I had bought other Amiga stuff from him. So hang on, I'm scrolling back now, and yep, it's right here.
So the setup for this is the pitch of him saying, basically, I identified that you want this thing and I've got it.
Yep. So right here it is. Sorry, this is all about the Amiga 4000. Okay, so here's the first message.
Before you read this, will this text be available somewhere that the audience can read and
oh yeah, I don't
verify
mind
for themselves what you were saying? Okay.
Yeah, I don't mind sharing it with anybody.
Okay.
So he messaged me. This was on December 21st. Is an Amiga 4000 tower on your want list? I said yes. I used to have one about 12 years ago or so, but when I got it, it wasn't operable as the board was badly damaged. Traces were rotted really badly. The guy had previously had it stored in an attic, so it had like a lot of mouse urine and stuff.
Sure.
So it was damaged. So I sold it for parts. He says, my neighbor reached out to me this morning and wants my help in selling it. I took these pictures earlier this morning, ... And he sends me 5 photos. And I said, wow, the board is clean, no battery damage as he oh, no, sorry. He texted right after the pictures. Board is clean, no battery damage as he removed it. I said, yeah, that's very clean. I said, what was he wanting for it? $700. So I was like, that's a really good deal. He said, I know.
What do you suppose, like, Steve, what would a machine sell like this? Or what would it sell for in the condition that your machine was in?
In the condition it was in, it was, with the exception of, if I recall, just a single bad capacitor or two. In fact, I can actually quote this because I was recently reaching out on a buyer's forum for one, about $3,000 in that neighborhood.
Okay. So this is an amazing friend deal.
Yep.
Got to sell it. Trying to use the emotional manipulation of it's a neighbor that's an old person that's just trying to get rid of it, sort of thing. So I'm sorry, Frank. Please continue.
So he said, so I messaged him back and I said, hey, I wouldn't be able to get it until after Christmas, though. I said, too much in paying for other stuff at the moment, because literally Christmas was a few days away.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a million other things we were buying.
Yeah.
So he messaged back and says, I told him I'd ask around after Christmas. You're the only person I've told about this so far. I could give him a couple $100 to hold it until after Christmas if you're interested. I said, yeah, I'll definitely take it. I said, I looked 6 or 8 months ago, and the only ones I found were kind of rough and twice as much or more. He said he had it covered, LOL. Otherwise, it would have been dirty. I said, yeah, it looks very clean. Best one I've seen in a long time. I said, I really appreciate you reaching out. I definitely want it. He said, this was at 243. All right, the 4,000 tower is yours. I gave him $400 and said, I'll give him the rest after Christmas. I told him you had wanted one a long time ago and you'd be keeping it. I said, yeah, thanks a million. I said, yes, I wouldn't sell it, LOL. I can send you over funds as soon as possible. Once you have it, you could do with it whatever you want, LOL, is what he said to me. And I said, oh no, like I've wanted one for like 15 years that's working. I said, I would not get rid of it unless I died. Yeah. And then he texts back and says, yeah, the last one I saw a few years ago was really beat up and they wanted like $1,500.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah. And then he says, this was the 22nd, the next day. Quick question. Do you think Tuesday or Wednesday you'd be able to cover that part of the 4,000? I gave him $400 to hold it, but I'm also trying to figure other stuff out on my end. Oh, and it does come with a keyboard and mouse. So yeah, so I sent him $350 right then, as soon as he messaged me. And, I said, I'll give you the other half here as soon as I get a chance. Because this was like 2 days before Christmas.
Yeah. So you guys talked, Steve and you spoke about this machine and compared notes. And I think that we have some slides prepared.
Yep. Do you want me to add those?
Yeah, if you would add those, please. Just to make sure. And I'll let you...
Oh, pickles. There it goes.
I'll let you all walk through the slides. So
Steve's
this is the
first
one. Yeah.
Yep.
So I originally purchased the Amiga 4000 tower from Mercari on August 14th. Actually, I believe it was August 14th or August 13th of 2020. And it was shipped to me within a week after that. And I received it. And it had been in my possession after that point.
Okay. You can say next slide. Or yeah, you can advance it too.
Yeah, so purchased on 8/14 of 2020 for $1,200, and then tax and shipping and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
There you go. Let's see. Posted 1 day before purchase date on receipt. So
this is the Mercari listing for the machine as originally purchased. And
by
then,
Steve. Yep.
Yeah, by Steve.
Yes.
Okay. And we who do we? Okay, sorry. Go ahead. Sorry.
So I believe this was your picture, Steve, right?
This picture was from the listing I had purchased. But that shows the serial number of the unit that I had purchased.
Yep.
So
this slide.
This slide is just to show that the tower in question was in my home. The reason for the receipts over on the right, it is sitting on a IKEA built desk.
Oh,
and
okay. Yeah.
That's just to show it was in my home in 2022 with the rest of my collection. Awesome. It's just there to show that, yes, I did have possession of it at that time.
Awesome.
Okay.
And then these are my text messages with Sean. And I don't know if there's okay. So this middle picture. So this is what I literally read to you guys from the text messages. There's Amiga 4000 tower on your wish list. So these are my. I screenshotted the text messages of the pictures and stuff that he had sent me. And if you look at the picture of the middle one that Sean sent me, you can see like some junk here on the side, and then his license plates blurred out and stuff there. But this is the exact same serial number. This 19-00723. I'll go back to the slide here.
Yeah.
19-00723.
00723. Yeah.
Even the marks on the
I was going to say the bubbling on the label.
The bubbling.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Now that was Steve's photo from his, Macari listing.
Yeah.
And here they are side by side. Same exact serial number. The bubbling is in the identical places on both. So Steve, like I said earlier, Steve had reached out because he, wanted to see if I had purchased the Amiga 4000 tower and that I had it. And I said, hey, I'm sorry, but I never got it. Like, he never shipped it to me. Like, he said several times he's shipping it and never did. Right. He says, well, do you by chance have any pictures or anything that he sent you of the machine? So I sent him the 5 pictures that Sean had sent me. And come to find out, they're the exact same Amiga, the same. And this was December 21st and 22nd. He messaged me about buying this tower from him. And Steve, when did you give it to him for repairs?
September 30th, 2022.
So like almost over a year prior.
Correct.
So he had not returned it to you after repairs or didn't make the repairs or whatever. And this is the exact same Amiga he tried to sell me that I paid for in December of this past year.
Right. And again, just to be clear, I did not attempt to do any internet detective work on this. This was actually prepared by a sympathetic party that went through and made this little slideshow for us and things like that, and identified all the differences in the things. But when I was really just sort of like, oh, Amiga 4000. Surely this is not just a coincidence. This isn't a machine you just bump into at Goodwill next to the, Hot Wheels e-machine. This is like a fairly rare and expensive retro computing. So people that might be watching this who aren't maybe necessarily familiar with the Amiga community, this is very much a grail item. Which is, I'm sure, why Steve purchased it, because this is one of those great machines that are a lot of fun to own, and for it to just be wrenched away from you under false pretenses, very, very disappointing.
Now, I will point out for us in the know about Amiga, like that was Amiga Technologies, which was the second company after Amiga went bankrupt. Right. So. It's one to have, but it's not the 4000 tower to have. It's not the original, but it's the closest you're ever going to get, because the original ones are so incredibly hard to find. This was the subsidiary, I think Aeon or Amiga Technologies is technically who made this second version of the 4000 tower, but they're extremely hard to find. Oh, yeah. Especially in that good condition. That thing looked brand new, essentially. Plastic was in great shape. A lot of times that smoked plastic is broken or missing, so when his neighbor wanted to sell it, for $700, I'm like, absolutely. Yeah, I definitely want that,
Amiga Love says SCOM.
Yes, that's it. SCOM. I couldn't remember what the name of the company was that had taken over after they went bankrupt, but yeah,
so I think we've done a really good job here of establishing Sean's MO for reaching out and grooming potential victims, gaining their trust, maybe doing a few small transactions to make things seem like everything is okay. And then when there is a big transaction, that's when he puts the burn on people. And so so we have that. We've established that that is his MO. That's what he does. Both of you gentlemen are victims of this
Mhm.
crime. Steve, again, your equipment was given to him for like a repair. It was never returned to you, correct? And
That is
then
correct.
that item was then sold to Frank.
Yep.
And so basically we've got like a situation where it is we're just taking other people's things and we're reselling it, and then we're ghosting the original person after we think that there's nothing else that can be gained from them.
Mhm.
And so here we are. So I believe that we have presented credible evidence to show that this machine was yours, Steve, and that Frank, you said that you will make these texts available. I
Oh
know
yeah.
that you
Anybody wants them?
you
Yeah, absolutely.
also you've shown me receipts
Mhm.
from online payments
Yep.
and things like that.
So hang on
So
a second. I'm going to show something real fast.
well, it probably won't be all that legible. So what I would say is absolutely. I mean, we should do those things. You should make that stuff available, but we probably need to talk about what actions have you both taken to remedy this situation? Since Sean, you're or since Steve, I've got this guy. Oh, this guy. Um, since um, uh, since it was originally your machine, are you able to talk about what the resolution was for you? Did you ever reach an amenable end with this horrible thing that happened?
What I can state is that there was a case brought to a district court. I will refrain from stating which court because I don't want to have it be viewed as a doxing attempt. But
Sure.
I did take Sean to small claims. As part of that, we went to mediation, and we did come to a agreement that we both that was satisfactory to both parties.
Okay. Is mediation a requirement in the state you live? I know that some states you can just go straight to a judge, and then there's other states where you do have to go through mediation. Is that a requirement where you live?
Because I'll say this much: it was a different state where I had to file, and in that state, it is a requirement. Where I am personally, I don't know if it is.
Okay. So this crime occurred across state lines.
Yes.
Okay. In an amount that would pass the threshold for either your state or this other state's amount for what would be considered to be a felony?
I don't know enough around the legal code. I believe so, but I'm not certain enough to say that with absolute certainty.
Okay. I know a lot of states the threshold is only $500 to $1,000. So some states it's $750. Some states it's really, really low because they are trying to put up a net to catch serial felons, like people that keep getting away and having charges reduced and things. So okay, so you did reach an amenable or some sort of situation that was amenable to both parties. Frank, what have you done? I mean, have you done anything up to this point? Are you planning to do something?
Yes. So I'll actually back up and take it one step back. So I realized I wasn't getting any of my stuff essentially first part of January. I went through my expenses from 2023 and was categorizing things as far as what can be written off and what can't, and things like that. That's when I realized the dollar amount. It was $6,321.90. So I'm like, wow, that's a lot of money. And then it hit me, and I'm like, I haven't gotten any of that stuff.
Right.
So I sent him a text message and said, hey, I'm not upset, not mad. I just was going through expenses. I found out I sent you $6,321.90 last year for stuff that I have not gotten a single thing. Oh, I'm working on it. Like I'll get you updated information for those 2 shipments, and I'll have your stuff, quick, no problem. few weeks go by, and then, like I said, I realized how big it was and how many other people were in the same situation as I was. And at that point, I was pretty upset because up until then, again, I gave him the benefit of the doubt. I thought he was a friend. I didn't realize that I was being taken advantage of until then. So after that, I sent literally a bullet point text thing. I need this, 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 and this. Like, I need to know the contact information for that guy that lives near me so I can go get that stuff.
Right.
I need the tracking information for the pallet that you sent with your brother's shipping company. I need to know on the last things that I bought you that you still have at your house, supposedly. Like, get me the information and tracking numbers for those. Things kind of snowballed from there. And then he admitted that he had spent that money for other things that I had paid him for. And he said some of the stuff was in transit. Some of the stuff wasn't. He has a lot of stuff still at his house that supposedly was shipped that really wasn't. So he had said, he emailed me, and I have this on, written in email. He had emailed me agreeing to pay back the $6,321.96 plus 8% interest. Because I told him, I said, if you're going to pay me payments back on this stuff, like, I'm charging you interest. Like, I need something out of this. Give me a couple days to a week to put something together so that I know how much I can pay you back and stuff. That was over a month ago now at this point. Nothing's happened. A couple weeks ago, he sent me some weight and dimensions for that Commodore PET that I had bought recently. Said, here's the dimensions, here's the weight. I said, okay, I'm going to go on pirate ship now. I'm going to email you the label. Go ahead and stick it on it, drop it off. Awesome. I appreciate it. Messages back and says, well, the number that you have for my return address is incorrect, even though it's the address that he sent me several times. Like, it's incorrect. It's like, it needs to be this number. You need to change it and send me a new shipping label. And that's when I got pissed. And I said, no, you need to just slap that damn label on there and send it. It doesn't matter what the return address is. It's going to get to me. Just send it to me. Well, this was on a Tuesday. Well, I can't drop it off till Friday. I was like, dude, you live 5 minutes from the UPS store. Just drop it off.
Right. Now, but again, isn't the return, because every interaction I had with him, he uses a UPS store address for things. So was it a UPS store address on this thing?
Yep,
so would you agree with the fact that if it did come back to the UPS store with an incorrect address, they're going to know who their customers are and would just hold that for them?
Correct. So the whole thing was BS, and it goes back to the whole thing of every time you ask for an update, they're stalling. I'll get it tomorrow. I can't do it today for, the weather was bad. I got something to do this day. Like, I know because of the time zone difference, like, the UPS stores open at the time you tell me you can't take it there.
Right.
So I was pissed. So finally I told him, I need this stuff now. Otherwise I'm pursuing legal action. So getting back to your question of what I've done so far, I stalled and I waited because I told him you need to ship it. And as of right now, that UPS label I sent him is still valid and it still hasn't been shipped. And that was over 2 weeks ago now at this point. So I called I called out there to where he lives and spoke with the local police department. And they said, you live out of state. I'm sorry. There's nothing that we can do. I'm going to transfer you to the sheriff's department. I was like, okay, great. They transferred me to the sheriff's department and said, I understand, what's going on. And yes, we can help you, but you need to file where you live locally because you live in another state. They'll start the case and then they'll call us as far as to do our part, afterwards. But you have to start it where you live. No problem. So this past Monday afternoon, deputy sheriff came to the house. I gave them all the information, all the payment stuff, all of the Discord conversations, text messages, everything, and said that, yeah, I want to pursue formal charges. They said, no problem at all. This definitely seems like it's computer fraud based on the fact that we never met in person. Everything was done electronically, including electronic payments and electronic transactions. So they're pursuing it as a felony computer fraud case. They said the only thing they weren't sure about is if it came down to trial, like if the amount was enough as far as for our state to physically bring him here, like have him extradited. And I told him if it's permissible, I'm fine with paying that bill. I will pay whatever your expense is to bring him here. No problem. So they said, okay, they'll let me know. So I'm waiting on detectives, that are doing their research. They have a computer forensics person that's reviewing all this, and they're going to get back to me. In the meantime, they did tell me go ahead and go the small claims route too, because the police aren't going to recover my money. They're just going to pursue felony charges.
Right.
So I reached out, like Steve did, and I didn't even know about Steve at this time. I reached out to that same thing. I called the small claims court. I asked him what I needed to do because I live in a different state. I asked him, hey, do I need to fly there? I have no problem doing that, but I
Right.
just want to see if there's a remote option. Oh, yeah, absolutely. We do everything via Zoom. So I said, perfect. So I've already started filling out the paperwork. I've got to mail it in. They're going to mail me back information, and then I have a company that I contacted that's going to serve the papers, and we're going to go to court.
Okay.
So I'm pursuing on as much that I can do in every legal angle.
Okay. Well, I cannot say that I don't blame either of you for taking the actions that you took. Again, this person who, again, very much likes to say this is all in the past. Like, that was the old geek with social skills. That's the old Sean. That's not who I am now. Is still, decades later, pulling the exact same scams, the exact same grift, breaking the same community trust that he has across the arcade community, the retro telecom community, consoles, now retro computing. It took getting to the Macintosh community to finally bring this to a point where hopefully there is going to be a comeuppance and some real and lasting change for Sean. So now that we know the whole situation, Steve, what advice would you give others to avoid having or allowing this to happen to them?
From my own interactions with him and just kind of looking back, really pay attention to your own gut feeling. If something feels off, just take a moment and think, why does it feel off? If you find that the person you're speaking with is very focused on keeping any conversation in a medium in which there's no actual paper trail, really question how much you should be trusting that person. The one thing that I do want to get across, because I know this is going to be something that will come up for the thought process of some who have also been through this. I know that there is definitely a feeling of shame, feeling like, oh, I shouldn't be susceptible to this, but somehow I fell for it. Do not hold that against yourself, because you're dealing with a person who has become a master at this kind of manipulation. It is not your fault at the end of the day. You just trusted a person you thought was a friend. Just always remember, trust your gut. If something seems off, examine why and see if what you're feeling is actually accurate.
Okay. Frank. Frank, you'll have to unmute your mouse.
I gotta unmute myself. Sorry, I have a bad habit with that. So, I totally agree. With what Steve had said, but the thing is like, I feel like he manipulated us in a way that's different than most scammers. Most scammers are kind of like a one and done type thing as far as with the person. Usually they come, they take something, and they go on to the next person. But he plays on the sympathy thing as far as with his personal happenstance, like this emergency came up, this problem came up, that problem comes up. So he plays on the emotional part pretty heavily. So again, being friends with everybody in the community. Like, he takes advantage of the fact that we all help each other out with other things. I know I've said this before, when things come up and emergencies with other people, we all chip in and we all help out and, get that person, back on their feet or whatever. So I think he really plays on that, hard, that a lot of people in our community specifically are very helpful and, trusting as far as I've never seen something on this large a scale, to be honest, because I did think it was weird that he didn't show his face on, any of the streams or anything. And he kept saying, like, I'm not showing my face till I get to 10,000 subscribers. I was like, well, that's weird, but I've met some other weird people. So I was like, okay, some people are like that. But it wasn't until after what happened to me and finding out that it happened to other people that I started looking back on some of those things. Like, that's kind of weird. He doesn't show his face. He's not very specific about things, like, and he was one of those people where, like, yeah, I know everything about everything, essentially. Like, yeah, I know everything about arcade community. I know everything about Commodore stuff. Like, if not, he knew people. And it wasn't just like, hey, I know Jim Bob who does repairs. It was big names. And I don't want to say the people's names that he name dropped frequently.
Right.
Out of respect for those people, because
again, those people are largely innocent too. They are victims
100%.
as well.
Yes.
And I have seen in some of the YouTube comments where people have said, well, is so and so going to make a statement on this or something? And it's like, they may not.
Sure.
They're under no obligation to do so.
Yeah.
Because most of them have figured this out too. But he is such a ever-present entity in various clubs and various scenes that people just know to avoid him, and they quietly kind of inform new people as they come into those things. But again, he's got a reality distortion field that makes it really easy to believe his crock of crap about a lot of different things. I would definitely say that he is a narcissist. Nothing is ever his fault. It's always somebody else did something to me. Oh, woe is me. I am not saying everybody is going through something, as I commonly say. But there is a point where narcissists and thieves will absolutely leverage that to take advantage of you. They will use that emotional manipulation to get good people to act against their own self-interests. So that is it is unfortunate what all has happened. So
I do want to say something really fast, though. For those of you who are watching and are listening to what we have to say and things like that, I strongly encourage you, if you are subscribed to his YouTube or Patreon, that you unsubscribe. Or if you know people that are, you should definitely unsubscribe, because that's just telling him that you believe that he's innocent, is the way I see it personally. Like, if you still support him and give him money, you're letting him know that it's okay to continue to do what he's doing. As of this morning when I checked, he still had 20 subscribers to Patreon, so people are still giving him money. So if you are, I would encourage you to refrain from doing so, and enabling them.
Yeah. So not giving Sean, Geek with Social Skills, material aid, that's a good place to start. The other place to start is this. You do what I did, which is, if you have a story to share it.
Yes.
Do not dox him. Do not engage in speculation. Do not engage in hearsay. Do not say, well, somebody told me about this thing, and so, guilt by association, or that just makes things worse. It's share your personal story.
Yep.
I don't care how big your platform is. It could be 5 people. It could be 500,000 people. Okay. Hit it down, because the only way that Sean, Geek with Social Skills, stops doing what he's doing is to hit him where it counts. And that is the search engine optimization that keeps putting his name to the top of every search on every platform with the word scammer, the word grifter, the word thief, and criminal. That is the only way this stops. Everybody, I don't want to get involved. I don't want to be the person that, what if I'm wrong? No, you're not wrong. You're not wrong.
Expanding on that, sorry, Ron, expanding on that, like Ron posted a video of his personal interaction and only his personal interaction. Dave did the exact same thing. Tonight, myself and Steve did the same thing. We showed our personal experiences and what happened to us directly. So yeah, like Ron said, that 100%, if you have a story of your personal interaction, please feel free to put it on comments here, either on YouTube or your own channel if you have one. If you don't, put it on Facebook or Twitter or whatever, or even on the Discord. You know, share your personal experience.
Absolutely. So, well, do we want to take just a few minutes? And when I say a few minutes, we've been going for about an hour and a half now.
Yep.
Why don't we take about 5 minutes? If there are people in the audience tonight that do have some questions for Frank, or that you've got some questions for Steve, we can certainly try to answer those things. Again, I would like to just remind people that neither one of our guests or the guests here are going to engage in speculation about other things that he might be up to or anything like that. But if you have questions specifically about their situations, it's something that they are able to actually respond to. They're all for it.
Anyone who is a mod of a Facebook group or knows mods of retro groups, this individual must be removed to shield others. That's a good point, Steve, but I will caution, like, I know Ron and I had an experience on one. You know, use your best judgment as far as how you approach that, because apparently there was some unwritten rules and regulations that Ron and I were unaware of in posting on one, and they got really nasty. So again, use caution and best judgment.
And just to be completely transparent, that community attempted to shield Sean, Geek with Social Skills, from criticism. And we're basically, I think Frank was just banned from the server, but I was put in timeout as a whistleblower. I was put in timeout for 24, 48 hours or something. And the explanation is we need to get more our bigger mod team in here to take a look at these claims. And so two of the main admins or mods on there, I repeatedly messaged them with what the situation was, what my personal experiences were, what Frank was saying as well, just because we were the two people that came forward at that time, and just said, you know, hey, like, this is what's going on, and this is this guy's history, and you can Google these search terms to find out more information about this person that you are an accomplice to. Because if you support criminals, they have a name for that, and they're called accomplices. So the community took about a week before I heard anything, and they only took action because I specifically said, if you guys do not make a call on this by Wednesday, this was like on Monday, you have till Wednesday to make a call on this. This should not take a week for you guys to sort through. There will be circumstances outside your community that will affect your community. And I don't mind saying that this is a community where Sean, the Geek with Social Skills, worked hard to make himself a big fish in a small pond, the Naboo community. I'm sure you guys have heard about this. To learn more from the people in that community, now that he has been removed from it, he was not seemingly well liked, and basically alienated a lot of that community, and was a gatekeeper and tried to put himself in a position of authority over other people. There's a weird control freak sort of aspect of all of this and stuff as well. But the Naboo Discord has a policy now of punishing whistleblowers. So this has all been documented. There's screenshots. We got it all. So it's a good thing to know too. I'm not saying that is representative of the broader Naboo community or of
Yeah,
every
that's
member
true.
of the Naboo server, Naboo Discord server. However, mods and admins are on record as saying they didn't want to remove him, but they kind of felt obligated because he now seemingly broke some rules of their community. And others came forward to defend him and say, can't we just separate what this is going on outside of our community from our community? So not great. Pretty bad, in fact.
But yeah, so
I
Commodore Forever just posted, this is the first time I've seen cross-platform cooperation on this. Open communication is key to stop this. I'm so happy to see this. With the technology and stuff, and a lot of us do cross-platforms, like we're not specifically Macintosh people or Apple people or whatever. But it is great to have all of us across all these different platforms spreading the word. And we hope to do this in the future with any potential other things that happen like this. So it is great. I know some groups don't get along with other groups, but in cases like this, I mean, differences should be set aside. Like with the Naboo specifically, like we weren't there to harass anybody or cause problems.
No.
Like all we were doing was bringing awareness to this person in their community,
Yes.
just so that other people would not get scammed. Like again, we told them Google for yourself, like do your own research.
Yes.
Like don't take what we say as the gospel, just
Yeah.
go and do your own research. And they just weren't having it. So
Yeah.
I do say that everybody should be open to at least think for yourself.
I did. I just wanted to say one last thing. I'm sorry. I know I've monopolized a little bit of this conversation here, but my ending notes, just as the moderator of the chat between you two, is that I'm very sorry that this happened to you, Frank. I'm especially sorry if I made any connections between you two. I know that he was often in chats on my Discord server and things like that. So he was
it's not your fault,
leveraging those things. So
Yeah.
I am very sorry. But
he didn't name drop you like he did other people though.
Well, that's good. I'm not big enough. I'm a nobody, and I feel good about that because I don't have to deal with any of that. But what I was going to say, just for my ending notes, Sean, I really do hope that you're still watching this. I really hope that you're still watching this because I want you to understand the gravity of what you've stirred up here. So, but Sean, you need to know that your long-term manipulation of multiple online communities, it ends tonight. Okay. Gig is up. The emotional manipulation, the gatekeeping of people who have no effing clue who you are, it's done. You're done.
Yeah, because until now he hid behind the fact that nobody knew who he was.
That's right. He had a really good
no
front,
photo, no nothing. Yeah.
But what I will say personally to you, Sean, and I really do hope you're watching, is that the most important thing, takeaway, I want you to know, I forgive you for what you did to me personally, but I will never forgive you for what you did to my friends. There's no excuse, and there's no coming back from that. So I want to thank you guys for letting me come on and mediate this chat, and I pass the baton back to you.
Ronick Explains had a question. Is
Yes,
there any other aliases he's known by?
I would say that just in the context of this chat, to make sure that that we're not aiding to any claims of that we're doxing him or anything like that, I would say that if you were to just Google Geek with Social Skills,
it's
Sean
not hard to find.
Scam or Grift or Sean Scam Arcade or Geek with Social Skills, or Sean Grift Arcade. I mean, it's very easy to find additional things. I mean, the man is smoke and mirrors. He absolutely puts on a good show. He's got people snowed. There are people watching this right now fuming. How dare we say bad things about their friend?
And in Sadmac 356, the buck stops here. Sean Geek with Social Skills, we're not putting up with this. And that's it, because up until now, people have only, as far as to my knowledge of what we're able to find, people had only pursued, like small claims and things like that. Like, I am pursuing felony charges, especially given the amount that I was, taken advantage of, like almost $6,400. So I am holding him accountable and taking full extent, and I pursue to spend whatever it takes to come to a resolution on this.
Absolutely.
Don't piss off Frank. It's basically
Yeah.
the moral of the story.
Steve, did you have anything else that you wanted to throw in here? I guess because we're kind of at the tail end of things.
Yep.
Honestly, I've said everything I needed to say. I do want to thank you for giving me a platform to actually put my story out there, because knowing now that it wasn't just me, that it was others, it made doing this all the more important.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us. We appreciate you sharing your story, for sure.
Yeah, it's been great meeting you.
So
Steve.
that's this day in tech history.
Yeah.
That's for those of you who don't know, that's one of the segments we usually do. But I would say this was probably our best this day in tech history yet, because we did go through the history of our
We've
experiences over
also
time.
had roughly between 60 to 80.
Well, right now 77.
77,
viewers.
viewers.
Yep.
That's great.
That's a
We
lot.
appreciate everybody spending an hour and a half with us. It's been it's definitely an emotional thing to talk about. It's but again, I'll reiterate what everybody else has said. If you have a story, share it, but you only share your story. If you want to reach out to any one of us, we'll be more than happy to.
Yep.
We're all available, and we'll make sure that any information that we need to get out to people will be available in a public forum, so that anybody can see what it is that we've collected.
Also, for those of you who have personal experiences and stuff like that, if you want to share any information or any experiences you have with me that you might think is pertinent to legal proceedings, you're more than welcome to share those, and I can pass those on to the police as well.
So just on that note, Frank,
case.
How can people get in contact with you?
So on Discord, I am Frodo Jedi. So you're more than welcome to reach out to me on Discord or YouTube. I don't really post any videos though. So Old World Tech Fridays is the best place to find me. So yeah, either of those is totally fine.
If you have trouble, you can reach out to any of us, and we'll get you in contact with Frank.
Yep.
Through the channels we have.
That's right.
So
send a raven, smoke signals.
Yep.
Whatever.
Carrier pigeon. Whatever.
That's right.
Well, I guess that brings us to the end of what is, I guess, a very solemn Old World Tech Friday. Yep. I want to thank everybody for being here this evening. I want to thank everybody for being in the chat, for the questions, the support, the love. This community is fantastic, and it's only going to get stronger and better because of this. So I guess with that, unless there's anything else, we'll say goodnight.
Just one thing. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. We greatly appreciate it.
And I know that we're multicast on several different streams, so like and subscribe to all of them.
All of us, yeah. Right.
For that way, future updates and things like that, we will present that as part of a segment if there's any news to share or anything like that. So definitely like and subscribe in all the places that it's shared.
If you haven't, also, I will suppose, if you haven't seen Dave's vintage Apple Tech's video or Ron's video, head over to their channels and watch them. You can experience their own personal stories, which will help you. And you can get it there on Ron's website, which he conveniently put on the bottom of the screen there. So I will say once again, thank you for everybody being here. And I hope you all have a fantastic Friday evening, and good night.
Thank you.
Have a good weekend.